get ready with me to do my 6,000th interview. I don't know if that number's correct, but I sure feel like it is. First things first is always skin prep, so I'm gonna do that now. Realistically, this might be my 20th interview in 6 months. I'm hoping, I really hope that it's my last. I have 2 interviews this week that are the same job but for 2 different companies, both in the construction industry. I don't have a clue where my other brush went, so we're just gonna apply with this one. Both of them are in the construction industry. They're just 2 different subspecialties in the construction industry. Now, initially when this company reached out to me, they were like, would you be okay with this salary? We're looking for a sales manager that could do a team of 6 on one place, and then the other place it's like a team of 12 or 20, I don't remember. 2 in it somewhere. Anyways, and then one company was like, this is the salary we're looking to give somebody, blah, blah, blah. So when the recruiter person reached out to me, the headhunter reached out to me, she was like, this is, what they're willing to pay. And I was like, unfortunately, no, that's not something I'm willing to make. I'm going to use this sponge because I don't like that spatula brush. That's not something I'm willing to go down to. And so, no, I was like, if they're, willing to come up, I can meet them, halfway and come down to 100 or 110, but I'm not willing to go all the way down to 60. And so she reaches back out to them and she's like, based off of her experience and her success at this, this is what her expectation is, but she understands if you're not willing to accommodate that. She comes back later on that night and she's like, they're willing to accommodate for you. So they were willing to come up to my price range on salary. And they had me do a quiz, they had me do a personality test, and they had me do pre-interview questions and a video. And so I sent all of that in and they were still willing and ready to meet with me. So that's what that one is today. Tomorrow I have one for a different company. She reached out to me and she was like, would you be willing to, this company wants to know if you'd be willing to go up really high, climb on the roof and go into attics and things like that. And I said, no, sorry. I'm not, in this day and age, we have technology that prevents people from killing themselves. And unless you have the equipment that would guarantee my safety, I'm not willing to do any of that because I am a solo parent of a special needs child who does everything for him and he needs me. Not to mention, I don't want to die. So I had every expectation that this company was going to come back and be like, no, we're not willing to work with her. Unfortunately, this is the biggest part of our job is that you have to get up there and go and do that. And I can see that. With what that job is, I could see why it's important to get up there. I get it. However, I'm just not really willing to risk my life, especially for a sales job. No. And so I'm not willing to come down on that, even though I know that realistically that's a part of that job. It's just that wouldn't be a good fit for me then. And they need to find somebody that would be willing to do that. I know a lot of men that don't mind risking their fucking lives, so go and find you a man. And so she, gets back to them and she's like, no, she's not willing to risk her life, whatever. She is definitely willing to do the sales management part of it, but she's not willing to go up. And I had full expectations that they were going to come back and be like, nah, we're not willing to work with her. Well, she comes back and she's like, they're saying it's not a deal breaker and they actually want to interview you. So that was a shocker, especially when you could very easily find somebody who was willing to do that. But I think it comes down to sales management experience and your ability and willing to make a team and be, there for a sales team like that, because it is a very hands-on kind of high stress job, especially when you have to meet quotas as a company, quotas as individuals, quotas as a market. There's all of this involved. You have to manage a bunch of different personalities, and it's construction, so we all know that it's a bunch of different male personalities. So you really have to be willing to deal with men and their egos and be able to put them in their place while also motivating them to do what's necessary to get their numbers up and make sales and do what's right for the company. And so I have the ability to do that, the desire to do that, the want, the need, whatever you want to call it, I can do it. I just am not willing to fucking go up on the roof and risk my motherfucking life. So I think they were like, no, with her expertise and her skills and her, experience and her success rate, which is proven. I have a little book, it's proven, so they're not just taking my word for it. But with all of that, no, we want to interview her. And essentially that's the way she described it. And so that made me feel good. And, I have no problems doing the managerial aspect of doing a sale, running a sales team. That is totally fine. I just, like I said, so she put me on the books. And so I have an interview with them via Zoom tomorrow. And that interview will be anywhere between 30 and 60 minutes. And she is sending me interview prep to go over that. I would be willing to work at any of these places. I am not picky when it comes to the, type of work that I'm doing, because like I said, I think that sales and sales management can transcend industries and genres in that industry. So I did construction sales, bathroom remodel. I'm very capable of doing construction sales in a different avenue. So was this what I was looking for? No, I was hoping to switch industries and go into pharmaceutical sales, but that didn't happen. I'm still gonna try. I'm still gonna attempt it. I still have that other job that I want to do, but I have to get my car working to do that. And since right now my car is out of commission with my brakes being cut, then I need to wait until that's done before I can go and just do that job. But that job is commission only. So I'm not too concerned about it. If you were actually paying me a salary, then, I'd be all on that, but you're not. And I just don't have the ability to go and do what he needs me to do. I have a neighbor coming by tomorrow to see if he could fix my brakes. I did order new brake lines. I ordered stuff to change my oil, like an oil pan, a oil filter, some oil. I ordered brake fluid. I ordered the new lines, bolts, the tools you need to do it. So all of that should be coming and be here tomorrow. I don't know if they will be here by the time this guy gets here, but at least he can come check it out and see if he's even capable of doing it. This is going to offer me the salary that I want, plus commission, benefits, flexible time for my kid and everything. I was driving 900 miles a week at my other job, and I was gone 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. I barely saw Weston, and that was not what I wanted. That's one of the main reasons I no longer do that job, because they were not really willing to accommodate my schedule. I also got injured. Somebody hit me from behind, rear-ended me, and it threw me forward, because he rear-ended me big time. It threw me forward, and it created a whiplash kind of situation. And I already have issues with my neck, my cervical spine, my lumbar spine, and everything else. And so it caused a problem, and I couldn't lift anything. My doctor told me that I had to get physical therapy, and I had to get all of this stuff, and I wasn't allowed to lift. And with that job, you had to lift a lot of weight. And so I just couldn't do it at that time. I was on a medical leave for a little bit before I was let go, because they couldn't accommodate it. They also couldn't accommodate my medical leave because Weston went into heart failure around that same time. And so I was ready to come back to work. And then Weston went into heart failure. And then that's when they were like, we can't accommodate your leave any longer. And they were like, so we're just gonna have to separate you. But I am I'm rehireable at that company. I'm just not willing to go back because of the hours, because of the guy that they put in my position, because they revamped. They did an entire like managerial revamp of that company. Whereas that position was promised to me and it was given to somebody else, and I was tired of being looked over. And so I did all of the work of that higher position, and they were taking advantage of that, and they wouldn't move me forward. They kept promising it to somebody else, and so, or they kept promising it to me and giving it to somebody else, and so I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. There's just too many red flags, and there would have been no way for me to report these red flags to the ethics board of this company because I was the only female. And complaint I had was that they were overlooking me because I was a female. So if they went to try to address that issue, they instantly would have known that it was me, and retaliation would come into play. Men's egos get bruised really easily in the construction industry, especially in like the sales aspect of it. And so I had to walk a fine line when managing a bunch of dudes in construction. And especially when I am addressing issues where I feel like there are unfair like practices happening, I basically had to take it on the chin and just be fine with it. And that's what I don't like. That's what I really wish the stigma would just kind of go away. I wish more women would get into construction sales. I wish more women would enter like male dominated fields so that this is just no longer a problem. I will say it was not the easiest managerial job that I had, because managing a bunch of guys and their egos can be difficult. It requires you to get to know a lot of people on a very like small scale. I don't want to say intimate because that's going to give you guys the wrong impression. I mean intimate in the aspect of like small. And so you had to get to know them like one-on-one so that you could really break down their why, what their reasoning is, like what their motivation is. One time I would like some brushes that just don't fucking fall apart, and every time I'm told this brush doesn't fall apart, this brush doesn't fall apart, and every time it fucking does. But yeah, so it took me getting to know each one of them on a more like detailed place so that I could figure out what motivates them, how they learn. I also do what's called like it's a personality test essentially, where they take this quiz and it kind of tells me the same things, like how they learn, what kind of personality they have. And this allows me to know like what kind of issues I'm going to have with them and what their strengths are, what their, attributes are, but also what their weaknesses will be. Like it'll tell you if you're a persuader, a maverick, like all things like that. I was a persuader. The ones that I refuse to hire are mavericks. Mavericks are people that have very big ego complexes. They're not spongy. They're not susceptible to other people's point of view. They think that they know everything and they don't require any additional support or learning. And when they're not doing well, it's always somebody else's fault. I hate people like that. Like, sorry, but you need to take accountability and understand that it's not always the leads. It's not always the customers. It's how you're presenting to these customers. It's the way you talk to the customers. It's how you relate to them or not relate to them, which can be the problem. And so it's just, to me, it's like if you can't take accountability of that, if you can't be a sponge and learn from your peers, learn from your superiors, like people that have been in the industry longer, equal, less, but are better because they have the position that they have. Like they're just better at that specific avenue. And so it's like you have to be coachable. If you're not coachable, I can't do anything with you. So I don't hire mavericks for that reason, because they are not coachable. For example, this guy in particular, we would do run-throughs every week where you would do like role play. And so you would go through the selling system, and we would do like each part of the selling system, and we would do it each week, and we would dive into it more intensely. We would go into it, get really specific into it, and like do a deep dive. And we would do role plays based off of each part of the selling system. And so he would get up there, do a role play, and I had everybody I was managing give pointers. Like, I would go down the line and be like, what would you do differently? What would you do differently? What do you think he missed? What do you think, like, he could have done better? And we would do this with everybody. It wasn't like we were singling this dude out. Everybody had to do this. Everybody. And so everybody took it on the chin. And everybody was like adaptable and amenable and coachable except for this dude. And instead of taking the criticism, which was not criticism, it was healthy critique, instead of taking it and like fixing those things so that he could have better numbers, he would argue. He would literally turn around, no joke, and argue with the assistant sales manager and the sales manager and tell us why we were wrong and why he's right and why his thing would do it. And if he was in front of a real customer, he would have sold it. But his numbers were so low. Like, he was not selling above a 10%. And my quota was 30. You had to sell above a 30%. And he just wasn't doing it. And he was at a 10% for the month for multiple months in a row. And it was constantly like, you're not giving me good leads. You're giving the leads to this. It's favoritism. Like, the weirdest shit. Crazy to me. It's like, you don't know everything. I don't know everything. Joe Schmo does not know everything. You could be the greatest salesperson in the fucking world. That person doesn't know everything. There's always ways to like pick up and learn from other people. As a matter of fact, he was the last maverick that was ever hired at that company. And then I had other big personalities that would constantly like laugh and make fun of me because I was a fan favorite from the very beginning, because I do my job well, but I'm also a funny person. And I was coming up with solutions to the problem instead of just letting there be a problem. I don't like there to be a problem. I want to come up with solutions to the motherfucking problem. I was being like thought of in the management field for a really long time because like 3 weeks into working there, I was training people on how to do that job. I took the initiative to be a manager way before I was even thought of to be a manager. And that's the way you have to do it. If you want to get into management, you want to get promoted, you have to start acting like you have the job that you want prior to you having that job. They have to see that you're capable, that you're a team player, that you're coachable, that you can coach people without coming off overbearing and entitled. Even if you don't have that job, even if you don't qualify for that job yet, even if there are like regulations that come into play before you can get that job, you still act like you have that job. Just like you dress for the job that you want, you act for the job that you want. Like, don't overstep. Don't start doing things that only a manager is allowed to do because you want that job. You can't do that. You need permission to do certain things. But I was given permission way before I was even being groomed for management, just because I could hold my own with my sales numbers and still come up with a boot camp on how to bridge the gap between sales training and being like thrown to the wolves. And I was peer-to-peer helping, coaching, and like I was helping my manager with whatever he wanted. I was always asking, is there anything that I could do that I'm allowed to do to take some stress off of you, to like move this off your plate? Like, I was a team player, and I wanted management to know from the very beginning that I wanted to be in management. Like, I had left a leadership job and was being thrown into entry again, like just entry level. And I was not used to entry level positions because I had just came from a management position. And so I was like, just so you know, I'm not staying here very long. Like, just so you know, I want to be in management, and that's where I thrive. That's what I'm good at. I love it. And that's where I'm headed. And he respected that. He was like, okay, great. Just don't overstep while you're not in management, but I hear you. Good job. Thank you. Now I'm just like, I'm not doing entry level anymore. Like, I'm not. You're going to bring me in as manager because that's where my experience is. I've earned it. Just like I've earned the pay. That's why I won't accept a job. Like, I just had somebody call me yesterday that was like, would you want to come on board? I have a position open. And he was like, your pay would be $40,000. And I literally laughed. And I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I did not mean to do that. Like, I thought he was joking. Straight up. And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, well, what's your background? Like, what's this? And he talked to me a little bit more. And he was like, okay, yeah, I get it. He was like, you're not going to want to come here because, no, I was not joking. You would be paid $40,000 plus commission, but you wouldn't even get commission until your second year. And so you would have to learn how to live off of $40,000 for at least your first year. And then you would have to build up a book of business to change that. He was like, but either way, you would be nowhere near $100,000 a year, even with commission. And I was like, no, sorry. Have a good day. Have a good day. You have to know what you're worth. You have to accept what you're worth because people do not give big raises. You have to understand what you come in at is essentially where you're going to hang around for the first few years because you don't get big raises. They base it off of what you came in at, which is why negotiations for a new job is really important. I have a new eyeliner. It's from Unicos. Look how pretty this is. Look how easy that is to apply. It's smooth as butter. The tip is super pointy. We have things that we're gonna be testing out. These are the, what do you call these? These are the Maybelline lifter gels. These are them. So we're gonna be trying out all of these. I also have all of the She Glam ones. So we've got, you guys will be getting one of these as well. So we have these. These are the She Glam lip glosses that are transfer proof. So we're gonna try these out as well. We're also gonna be trying out the 12-hour long-lasting lip stain. It's a lip liner stain by She Glam. And then we have these, which is the She Glam eye jellies. These are the dupes for the About Face eye jellies. So you guys will also be getting one of these in your giveaway. So we've got 2 new products for the giveaway. All right, I've got 20 minutes to get ready. I'm gonna put on some brown mascara. This is the Lash Clash from YSL. Go over to part 2.